Hey everyone, welcome back. My name's dustinkreis, and today we're going to do a game discussion, and we're going to talk about this game right here, Bravely Default for the Nintendo 3DS. Brought to us by Square Enix and Nintendo over here in the States. And, yes. I love this game. Absolutely love this game. It is fantastic. There are some bad parts in it, but if you play the game correctly, the bad parts are kind of minimized, but a lot of the stuff that you've read in the reviews are kind of true. This does have just a huge amount of repetition in it. But when we talk about the gameplay, without trying to give spoilers, I'll try to, say why, I was able to minimize it a little bit. But, man, from start to finish, this is what I want from RPGs. It's just a grand adventure, a really interesting storyline with great characters, a great battle system, really just awesome battle system. I really dug this game. Great graphics, great music. There's really not a lot to nitpick with this game. There's one big thing in particular, but other than that, this is a pretty perfect JRPG for all those people out there who want to play a really awesome JRPG on the go. I fully recommend getting this game. Anyway, where to begin with this thing, man? This is sort of a pseudo-spiritual successor to Final Fantasy The Four Heroes of Light, and I, for one, am really glad that this has nothing to do with Final Fantasy. Nowhere on this does it say Final Fantasy. It's its own, series. It has allusions and sort of inspirations from Final Fantasy, of course, but it's going to be its own thing now. Final Fantasy can go off and do all the crazy stuff that they want to do with Final Fantasy, and for us old school kids, we have the Bravely series. And I'm just really excited about this. Anyway, storyline is, where to start with this? Basically, you start off as Tiz, a sort of very normal farmer in a very pastoral farmland scene, and all of a sudden his village gets swallowed by this great chasm. And through meeting a few other characters, Tiz, Agnes, Ringabel, and Adia, they set off on an adventure to reawaken the four crystals and help save the world. Now, this sounds incredibly familiar because it's been the plot of a majority of the Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 5, I think the crystals were in Final Fantasy 4. I mean, Final Fantasy 9. Crystals. So, anyone who's been very familiar with the Final Fantasy series over the years, you're going to fall right into this, and it's going to feel like you're meeting an old friend. Like, it's just, I don't know, there's something about it, the way that the story's presented. When we get into the gameplay, the job system is just, for me personally, being a fan of the Super Nintendo era of Final Fantasy in particular, this was like a love letter written specifically to me from Square Enix, and I absolutely loved it. Storyline wise, it is your pretty typical tried and true going out and save the world scenario. There are some really kind of clever twists. However, the clever twists in this storyline is also part of the game's downfall. What works really well storyline-wise does not work well gameplay-wise. You've probably read reviews that talk about a terrible second half of the game. And while the second half of the game is, I wouldn't say it's terrible, it's definitely like, really? This is what you guys want to do with this? Really? So from a storyline perspective, what happens in the later part of the game makes total sense, but also at the same time, from a gameplay standpoint, you're just like, oh my god, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me, game? So, if you can get past that frustration, Duncan, I swear to God, stop it. Why do you do this every time I do a game discussion? Why? Come here. Come over here and sit down. Anyway, if you can get past sort of that frustration, sort of the mid part of the game that's really frustrating, you're going to find that there's really a lot to like with these characters in this scenario. I fell in love with these four guys, and hopefully when Bravely Second comes out, watching that final AR, it almost feels like the final AR movie. It almost feels like it takes place far into the future. So I guess I don't know, if we'll even see these guys anymore. Maybe it'll be like Final Fantasy, and each one's sort of its own individualized thing. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But man, just the world is quite awesome too. The gameplay. Now, this is where this game shines for me. I love games with a job system, and this has basically one of the best job systems I've seen in a game for a long time. The main problem with job system games, though, is that they become a big, huge grind. Just awful. I've never beat Final Fantasy V because I was grinding up jobs and I just got so sick of it, I put it down and never went back to it. Dragon Warrior 7, I've never beat Dragon Warrior 7, again, because it's got a huge job system in it, and I was grinding out jobs and I just lost interest in playing it. How this game chooses to minimize that is something a lot of people are probably going to have a little bit of concerns about. And that is sort of auto-battling. You can set these guys up, which I guess I should pause there before I really get into this and talk about the Brave and default system, but maybe we'll talk about that in a second. You can set these guys up to 4 Braves and 4 physical attacks, have them all do that, and you can pretty much stomp through most, not all, but most of the random encounters in this game. So grinding out jobs is not bad at all. You can speed the attacks up to the point where, battles can be done in like 4 seconds. And on one hand, people could be like, that's really terrible because it's taken a lot away from the game and you're really just not even playing the game. But when I'm leveling jobs, I don't want to deal with all that nonsense. That's part of the reason why the SMT series is not a great series for me, because every battle is so life or death. Whereas in this game, you can just sit and grind out jobs. I was watching Adventure Time, grinding out jobs. I was watching Supernatural, grinding out jobs. It was pretty awesome, to be honest with you. And then by the time I put that time in, made that investment, and by the end of the game, my team felt pretty damn powerful. Now, that doesn't mean the end of the game was a cakewalk by any measure, but I was definitely able to deal with what came at me. But other than the job system, an awesome sort of risk-reward battle system with the Brave and default. And basically what that is if you Brave, you can take an extra turn, but you have to wait an extra turn before you can attack again. And then default is basically your defense, but also it allows you to store up a turn. So you start off at 0, and when you make your first attack, you go to -1, and you have to wait 1 turn. You're, like a normal battle system, to attack again. However, you could Brave twice and then have to wait 2 turns to attack again. And there really is, the natural inclination's like, okay, well, I'll just Brave 4 times with every character, and there we go. But when you get into the boss battles or some of the stronger enemies, you really have to sort of balance out how you do your Brave and defaults, because you can leave yourself wide open for 4 turns for enemies to stomp on you. And even when you're auto-battling, sometimes you still kind of need to pay attention, because enemies can just gang up on you during those 4 turns. If you don't wipe them out in that first turn, bad things are going to happen. So you kind of need to watch what's going on. And one of the things I always did was I always left Agnes. I left her at 1 turn and just had her cast heal magic the entire time. So, I was burning through MP, but when you're grinding out jobs, you don't really care. But yeah, really, really interesting system. And especially when you have abilities that instead of using like magic points, use brave points. So you can put your character into a -3 to use a really powerful an ability like stillness. I'm just going to throw that out there. Stillness. Let me say it one more time because it seems pretty fucking important. The ability stillness. Anyway, you can use that to sort of, have a nice ability. I'm not going to tell you what it does. You guys can figure it out and figure out where you need to use it. But, yeah, I mean, when you mix this Brave default system with the endless customization of the job system, you have probably one of the most in-depth RPGs out there. Maybe the SMT games have more depth, like Persona 4 with the social links and the demon fusing and things like that. But in terms of just sort of a traditional RPG, Japanese RPG, Bravely Default is probably got one of the deepest systems I've played in a long time. That's even with console stuff. Sometimes it feels like the console RPGs are a lot simpler than the handheld RPGs for some reason. I don't know why that is. But yeah, the thing about Bravely Default is you feel like you've played this game 100 times before, but it also presents you with enough new things that it just feels like a welcome home. And that's really, I just love playing this game beginning to end. Just felt like Square Enix was like, yes, we know you still exist. We're still doing the new flashy things, but for you guys that grew up with us, we want to celebrate you. And Duncan's hair is flying up in my face. Anyway, there's a lot more other discussions out there, and a lot of you will probably look up a guide or something, so that'll help you integrate to all the intricacies of the game itself. If I sat here and went through everything this battle system had to offer, this would probably be like an hour-long video, and my voice won't last for that. The graphics. I love the sort of hand-drawn watercolor graphics of this game. It really feels like, kind of like Saga Frontier 2, the way the backgrounds look and everything. It's a very interesting perspective. A lot of times the dungeons will look like sort of a normal dungeon, but when you go into a town, it's like I don't want to say a 2D perspective, but it almost looks like a side-scrolling town, or just the perspectives are a little skewed in interesting ways. It still kind of maintains that storybook look from Four Heroes of Light. What else about the graphics? I really enjoyed, on the back here, it has them all drawn in sort of realistic proportions. But I actually really found the chibi characters to be really endearing in this game. Normally I'm not a big fan of that. I kind of run 50-50 with it in some ways. Like Dragon Quest, I would rather have Dragon Quest 8 graphics over Dragon Quest 9. But for some reason, for Bravely Default, I really, really enjoyed the chibi characters, and I don't know. There's just something about how just like kind of how big the stakes are in this game, but yet how cute the little characters are in their little dress-up outfits and things like that. There's a lot of sort of stupid hullabaloo about the censoring of this game. Some of the job costumes for the female characters are a little bit risque, and for the American audiences, I think for Europe as well, they censored those down a little bit, and people were like acting like they were completely changing the storyline of the game or something, and it's just, they just made one of the characters' hot pants a little bit wider so they're not showing off so much skin, Nothing major, but yeah, from a graphical standpoint on the 3DS, this looks amazing, and the 3D is really well done in this. I don't normally play my games with the 3D on, but I like to kick it on every now and then just to kind of see what the vistas and everything looks like. And if you're a person that plays in 3D, you're really going to enjoy playing this. I should say something about the battle system. It retains that characters on the, your characters on the right side of the screen and the enemies on the left from the old Final Fantasies. Just everything about this game screams, if you're an old school Final Fantasy fan, even though you made a big deal about this not being Final Fantasy, but if you're an old school Final Fantasy fan, there's just so many throwbacks for you that you're just going to sit there with like a smile on your face. even when you get to the tedious part of the game, you're just like, ugh, you know. Finally, the music, tried and true sort of RPG music. Nothing really stand out. You know, I mean, it was good, and for the areas you go to, there's some really good tracks in there and everything. But as a whole, on the soundtrack of what I heard while playing, it's not something I'm going to rush out and get the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack that came with this was just like a sampler disc. I don't think it's not like the Tales of Symphonia. You get a 4-disc one, but it's not something I'm going to rush out and get the full soundtrack for. But that being said, while you play it, there are no like really bad, annoying tracks. They're all really good tracks that fit the game very well. But yeah, oh my gosh, sitting here at the end of this, at the end of days, you know, at the end of all things, I should say. I am hard-pressed to think of an RPG since Xenoblade that I've enjoyed this much. I really had a great time with it. Yes, there is about a 2 to 3 hour sort of slog, but if you okay, here, let me just put it to you this way. If you guys haven't, you know, got to this point yet, try to build up, by chapter 4, you're going to know how you want these characters to play. Usually, you know, like me, I used Agnes as a healing character. Ring a Bell and Tiz were my damage dealers. And then I used Adia as a Swordmaster Knight combo to sort of defend my team, but also deal big counter strikes back. And that's sort of how I played it, and it worked extremely well, except for a few boss fights where I had to switch things around a little bit. But, you know, by the 4th chapter, I knew that's how I wanted to play this team. And when you get your play style into the game, and you figure out how you want your team to be, really put the time in and level up those characters by chapter 4. Because when you get to chapter 5, you're going to understand why people are kind of groaning about this game a little bit. But the good thing is, if you get your team high enough, you can drop the encounter rate. That's one thing I should also mention. You have a lot of options in your menu, sort of the crossbar menu. You have this whole mini game where you rebuild Norende, the town that's destroyed at the beginning of the game, and you get items and crazy things like that. You have the ability to basically change how the game plays completely. You can drop the encounter rate to -100, which means no encounters at all. And I've heard of people like speed running the game to try to beat it in like under 4 hours or something like that. That's crazy. Maybe not 4 hours. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. But that's absolutely insane to be able to actually beat the game without even getting into one random encounter. I'm not exactly sure how you could do that without getting money or anything, but whatever. So you can do that. You can drop the difficulty of the battles down. You can really make this game play the way you want to. There's this whole system in the battles where you can summon other players, because it kind of ties into how the game, the storyline and everything. You can summon other characters. I used one of Steven's characters to deal massive damage to a boss that was giving me trouble. There's so many things in the system. So, I mean, definitely check out all the stuff this has to offer. But by the time you get to Chapter 4, really invest some time in Chapter 4 to build up some jobs, max them out, try to get a growth egg as soon as you can. Because once you get to Chapter 5 on, you're going to kind of want to just punch through the game. And you'll see why. You just want to sit down and just lower that encounter rate and just get what has to be done, and get to that final part of the game. Because the ending of the game is actually really cool. And I'm actually really excited to see where this goes next. They did a great job of sort of building you up for Bravely Second. And I have no idea when it's going to be coming out. But if the YouTube world is anything to judge anything by, this was a big success for Square Enix. And I think we've seen the beginning of a wonderful new franchise, one that I'm going to enjoy hopefully the next few installments of, and hopefully they don't do the Final Fantasy thing where they completely change the wheel second time around. I wouldn't mind if they changed like jobs and have different jobs, kind of like how Etrian Odyssey does. Each game kind of redefines the jobs a little bit. That would be awesome, but don't reinvent the wheel like you do with Final Fantasy. Kind of keep it that old school feel. But anyway, guys, that is my discussion for Bravely Default Flying Fairy. And if you remember, well, I don't want to say anything. Just remember, it's not a Final Fantasy, so get rid of those FFs. Anyway, that is it for this video. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.